What would you think if I told you that silence is not absence, but a mirror? That when he does not call or message you, it is not about him at all, but about the unspoken war waging beneath your own skin, in the shadowed corridors of your unconscious mind. You are not waiting for him, you are waiting for yourself to remember who you are beyond the reach of his approval. The ache you feel is not rejection, but the tremor of an old wound surfacing, one carved by generations of women taught that their value lies in being chosen. This silence is not abandonment, it is initiation. It is the first step into the labyrinth where the myth of scarcity begins to unravel, the belief that you must shrink, plead, or prove yourself worthy of love. When he vanishes, he becomes a vessel for your shadow, the part of you that fears unworthiness, the part that believes connection must be earned through performance. And yet, this is not weakness, this is the raw material of transformation. Every woman who has ever reclaimed her sovereignty has first stood here, trembling on the edge of self-confrontation, staring into the void of unanswered messages and wondering if she is enough. The masculine unconscious moves in cycles, retreat and return, silence and declaration. He withdraws not always because he is disinterested, but because he is instinctively responding to the archetypal rhythm embedded in his psyche. He needs space to reconcile his inner contradictions, to reestablish control over a world that demands constant action from him. But you, shaped by different rhythms, interpret this withdrawal as abandonment. Your feminine soul longs for continuity, for emotional resonance, for the sacred tether of presence. You were built to nurture, to hold space, to weave meaning from connection. So, when he goes silent, your body remembers every time someone left before. Every childhood echo of being unseen, unheard, unwanted. And so you begin to question. Did I say too much? Was I too much? Should I have been quieter, softer, more accommodating? These questions spiral like smoke, clouding your vision until you forget that you are not meant to contort yourself into a shape that fits another's fleeting need. The Jungian analyst Erich Neumann once wrote that the feminine principle seeks union while the masculine seeks separation, not rejection, but individuation. He pulls away not to hurt you, but to find himself again. But unless you understand this cycle, you will mistake his retreat for betrayal. This is where the ego steps in, loud, frantic, desperate to fix what was never broken. It wants answers, it wants reassurance, it wants proof that you still matter to him. It whispers that maybe if you text first, if you make yourself smaller, if you give him space without taking up any yourself, maybe then he will return. But the ego is not your guide. It is the frightened child within you, screaming for validation, mistaking attention for love. True power does not lie in chasing or convincing, it lies in becoming untouchable in your self-possession. The woman who understands the unconscious knows that silence is not a punishment, nor is it a plea for pursuit. It is a threshold, a doorway into deeper self-awareness. What if, instead of spiraling into anxiety, you used this moment to look inward, to ask not, why did he leave, but what does my reaction reveal about me? The pain is not meaningless. It is a compass pointing you toward the parts of yourself still bound by fear, by dependency, by the illusion that your worth depends on someone else's behavior. You were never meant to orbit another's life. You were meant to burn with your own light, fierce, unapologetic, whole. When he doesn't call, do not rush to fill the silence. Let it teach you. Let it unearth what needs to surface. Let it remind you that the only voice that truly matters is the one whispering from deep within you, the one that has always known your name. There is a moment in every woman's journey when she realizes that longing is not weakness, it is revelation. The ache of silence, the sting of absence, the hollow echo of unanswered words, these are not failures. They are invitations to dive deeper into the sacred well of the self. When he does not call or message you, it is not the end of a story, but the beginning of one far more profound, the story of your own becoming. You were never meant to be completed by another, you were always meant to become whole within yourself. This is the essence of individuation, the Jungian path of psychological and spiritual maturation. It is not about fixing what is broken, but about integrating what has been hidden, denied, or disowned. Every time a man withdraws, he stirs something ancient within you, an ancestral memory of abandonment, of being unseen, of needing to earn love through sacrifice. But these echoes do not belong to this moment alone. They are fragments of a collective wound carried by women for generations, the wound of believing that we must be chosen rather than choosing ourselves. The masculine unconscious is built upon cycles of withdrawal and return, solitude and action. He needs space not because he doesn't care, but because his psyche demands it. This is not rejection, it is recentering. He must disappear for a time to gather himself, to recalibrate, to reclaim the sovereignty of his own inner world before he can fully return to yours. But if you have not yet learned how to hold your center in the face of his absence, you will panic. You will reach out. You will question. You will twist yourself into knots trying to decipher what cannot be understood through logic alone. This is where the shadow work begins, in the quiet spaces between texts, in the pause between calls, in the stillness where you are left alone with your thoughts. Your shadow is not evil. It is simply
part of you that was never allowed to be fully seen. It holds your fears, your insecurities, your deepest wounds, masked as strength. And when he disappears, your shadow rises to the surface like a storm tide, demanding to be acknowledged. Do not fight it. Do not run from it. Let it speak. Let it show you what still needs healing. Stoic philosophy teaches that we suffer not from events themselves, but from our judgments about them. When he does not respond, it is not the silence that hurts, it is what you tell yourself about that silence. That you are unworthy, that you are unlovable, that you are too much or not enough. These are not truths, they are projections of an ego still clinging to external validation. The wise woman knows that her value does not fluctuate based on someone else's behavior. She does not wait for permission to feel whole. She does not need proof to believe in her worth. The feminine soul was never meant to beg for presence. She was meant to embody it, to radiate it, to be so deeply rooted in her own truth that the absence of another does not shake her foundation. This is not coldness. This is sovereignty. This is the alchemy of pain into power. The woman who walks this path no longer sees silence as punishment. She sees it as preparation, a sacred intermission in which she is invited to remember who she is beyond the reach of any man's voice. And so, instead of reaching out, she turns inward. Instead of chasing, she waits. Not passively, but fiercely, like a priestess standing at the altar of her own awakening. She asks herself, what is this silence revealing? What part of me still believes I need his attention to feel real? What am I afraid to face without his voice to distract me? This is not easy. It is not comfortable, but it is necessary, because true freedom does not come from constant connection. It comes from the ability to stand alone without fear, from the courage to sit in the unknown without rushing to fill it, from the wisdom to understand that sometimes the greatest act of self-love is to stop waiting for someone to prove they love you. There is a sacred reckoning that occurs when silence stretches long enough to become unbearable, not because it is painful, but because it forces you into the presence of yourself. You were never meant to be rescued from your own depths. You were always meant to dive into them. When he does not call or message you, do not rush to fill the void with explanations, justifications, or desperate outreach. Let the silence burn away the illusion that another's attention defines your worth. Let it strip you down to your rawest self, the woman who existed before he arrived and will remain long after he is gone. This is the alchemy of shadow integration, the process by which what was once hidden becomes sacred fuel for transformation. Your unconscious mind does not reject pain. It uses it. Every time you have been left waiting, every time your heart has pounded in anticipation only to be met with silence, your psyche has been preparing you for this moment. A moment not of surrender to suffering, but of initiation into self-mastery. The feminine soul does not fear darkness. She knows how to navigate it. She has walked through fire before. She was born from it. You are not here to be chosen. You are here to choose. Choose clarity over confusion. Choose self-respect over desperation. Choose the path of inner sovereignty even when it feels lonely. Because real power is not found in constant validation, but in the ability to stand firm in the absence of it. The man who withdraws is not your enemy. He is your mirror. He shows you where you still cling to the belief that love must be earned rather than embodied. He reveals the places where you confuse attention with affection, presence with devotion. The masculine principle, as Jung described it, seeks separation, not rejection. He retreats not to wound, but to gather himself. But unless you understand this cycle, you will misinterpret his silence as abandonment. And in doing so, you will lose yourself in the labyrinth of speculation. What did I do wrong? Did I push too hard? Was I not enough? These questions spiral like smoke, clouding your vision until you forget that you are not meant to contort yourself into a shape that fits another's fleeting need. Instead, ask yourself, what part of me still believes that my value depends on someone else's behavior? What fear am I mistaking for truth? What wound is being activated beneath the surface of my conscious mind? These are the inquiries that lead not to suffering, but to revelation, to healing, to empowerment. The woman who walks this path no longer sees silence as punishment. She sees it as preparation, a sacred intermission in which she is invited to remember who she is beyond the reach of any man's voice. Stoic wisdom teaches that we suffer not from events themselves, but from our judgments about them. When he disappears, it is not the silence that hurts, it is what you tell yourself about that silence. That you are unworthy, that you are unlovable, that you are too much or not enough. These are not truths, they are projections of an ego still clinging to external validation. The wise woman knows that her value does not fluctuate based on someone else's behavior. She does not wait for permission to feel whole. She does not need proof to believe in her worth. And so, instead of spiraling into anxiety, she turns inward. Instead of chasing, she waits, not passively, but fiercely, like a priestess standing at the altar of her own awakening. She asks herself, what is this silence revealing? What part of me still believes I need his attention to feel real? What am I afraid to face without his voice to distract me? This is not easy. It is not comfortable, but it is necessary, because true freedom does not come from constant connection. It comes from the ability to stand alone without fear, from the courage to sit in the unknown without rushing to fill it, from the wisdom to understand that sometimes the greatest act of self-love is to stop waiting for someone to prove they love you. The silence stretches, not as punishment, but as invitation. It is in this stillness that the illusion of control begins to dissolve, and what remains is the raw, unfiltered truth of who you are beneath the need for external validation. You are never meant to be tethered to another's rhythm. You are always meant to discover your own. The masculine retreats, yes, but the feminine learns to breathe without him. She does not wither in his absence, she expands, and she remembers that her power was never in pursuit, but in presence. This is the essence of emotional sovereignty, the quiet knowing that your worth does not rise or fall based on someone else's behavior. You do not need his voice to confirm your existence. You do not require his attention to feel real. What he gives, he can take away, but what you claim within yourself cannot be stolen, lost, or withheld. This is not detachment born of coldness, but of clarity. A woman who has done her inner work does not fear silence. She reveres it. She knows that only in the absence of distraction can true self-awareness emerge.
You have spent so long believing that love means chasing, that connection requires effort, that affection must be earned. But the deepest truth whispers from the depths of your soul: love is not a performance. It is not something you beg for, plead for, or bargain for. Love is something you embody, not from a place of need, but from a place of wholeness. And when you stand in that wholeness, when you no longer seek completion in another, you become untouchable in the most sacred way. This is not about becoming unfeeling, it is about becoming unshakable. It is about reclaiming the parts of yourself that once believed they had to shrink to be loved. It is about understanding that the masculine withdrawal is not rejection, but recalibration. He needs space not because you did something wrong, but because his psyche demands it. His silence is not about you, it is about him. And when you finally stop taking it personally, you begin to see it for what it truly is: a mirror, reflecting back the places where you still struggle to hold your own center. You were never meant to orbit around another's life. You were meant to burn with your own light, fierce, unwavering, radiant. And when he does not call, when he does not message, when he vanishes into the fog of his own internal world, you do not collapse inward. You expand outward. You turn toward yourself with the same devotion you once gave to others. You ask not, why am I not enough, but what part of me still believes I need to prove my worth? This is the path of the awakened woman, the one who no longer waits to be chosen because she has already chosen herself, who no longer chases because she understands that true connection cannot be forced, who no longer fears silence because she has learned to hear the voice within her that has always known the truth. Let this be your rebirth. Let this be your return to self. Let this be the moment you stop waiting for someone else's words to validate your existence and instead speak your own truth into the void.